Hi, it's Marty and it's quilling time. Videos would start with "It's been a while again." And it's been 2 months since I uploaded a video here in my channel. But still, thank you so much for sticking around and patiently waiting for my next video. I'm sorry for taking a break, and it took me 2 months to upload because of my day job. It required a lot of time, energy, effort, commitment, compassion para matapos natin yung school year. Well, anyway, we are now in our imaginary 2-month break before the beginning of the new school year. So I have time to edit finally. I actually have filmed a lot of reading vlogs, but I haven't had the chance to edit them because whenever I sit down on the computer, I sit down on the computer. Whenever I sit down in front of a computer, I have to do paperworks, a lot of them. So since it's the start of our imaginary 2-month break before the school year starts, we will now be indulging ourselves with this fun tag. Thank you for Moon of Moonlight Scrolls for tagging us. I will be linking her channel below, and please do check out her channel. She uploads dark academia videos and book skits that I enjoy. So go and check out her channel after watching this video. Since I always forget to tag people at the end of my video, I will be now tagging people to do this tag as well. So yeah, I'm tagging Louise of Louisity and Ray of Ray Reads because I enjoy their book discussion so much, and I enjoy their talk. Yeah, please do this tag, guys, your tag. So, without much further ado, let's now move to the 13 questions that we will be talking about. I also would like to hear your thoughts on each of the questions, so let's talk in the comment section. Best book so far in 2021. I am biased. You may hear only one book in here, but I tried my best to diversify. But then I am really biased with my favorite books, and it so happened that in 2021 it got its Netflix adaptation, so I have to reread them, and so it devoured the first place, and that is 13. Surprise, surprise. So ano pa ba maririnig nyo? Syempre 13 channel to, charot. So 13, or particularly the last book that I read for my reread so far of 13 before the Netflix adaptation comes, is 13 Volume 3, last 4 cases in its original 13 cases. So this one is actually special for me because this is where we find out the origin story of the Kambals, and the Kambals are my favorite characters in the 13 verse. So this is where we get to know them, their origin story, and of course the baptism of Alexander 13. Spoiler. This is supposedly where the Netflix adaptation stops, but it did not. So I'm looking forward for the next season, but enough of 13. I actually have recorded a reading vlog of my 13 binge reread, so I will be uploading that soon. So we will just talk about more of 13. So if you haven't heard of 13, I'm surprised. But yes, if you haven't read about 13, if you haven't heard about her, she is this paranormal detective. She is the one that the police go to when the crime that they are investigating goes to the supernatural side. And among the 3 books, this is the thickest one. Yes, because this is where we met Talagbusaw. If you have watched the 13 Netflix, this is where we met Talagbusaw. This is where we met young Crispin and Basilio. So if you haven't heard of 13 and if you haven't watched the Netflix adaptation, what are you waiting for? Go watch it now. Go back to this video once you're done. If you're still here, but you haven't read Trece, and if you haven't watched the Netflix adaptation, or you haven't heard about Trece, Trece is actually the last name. This is a clan. Brings the balance between the supernatural world and the world that we know. Talking about ghosts, encantos, diwata, elemental magic, mythological creatures. Especially, this is rich and rooted in Philippine mythology. So, this is actually a rich representation of our Philippine mythology even before the Spaniards came to colonize the Philippines. So I really recommend Trece to people who are looking for diversity and looking for in-depth study on the Philippine mythology, folklore, thriller. I will be talking about the Netflix adaptation and the graphic novels in some other videos. We will not focus on that anymore here. I actually have recorded a reading vlog for my reread of the first 3 books of Trece, and this is my favorite of the 3 books. And I have read a lot of awesome books in the first half of 2021 because I already read 39 books in the first half, and that's almost double my reading in the last year. So this is actually a good year to start. So yeah, I like this book. This is the best book of the first half of 2021. Number 2, best sequel so far in 2021. I haven't read a sequel yet in 2021 except for Volume 2, or the Trece 2, is titled Unreported Murders, and this is the second book to the original 13 cases. So it has 4 cases, and this is a great sequel because in the first book, we met the main character and where she works and the nature of her job. In the second book, she got fiercer and the crimes got a little more complex than the first book. This is also where I developed my liking to the Kambals. So in this book, we're no longer building our relationship with the characters, we're no longer building the world, but we are already in the world and we are enjoying every gore, every blood, action, and all of those awesome stuff in Trece, especially the storyline. That's why it's a great sequel to the Treceverse. Number 3 and number 4 is all about new releases, and number 3 is the new release that you haven't read but you would like to read. And the fourth question is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? Which I don't have an answer because I don't keep tab of new releases because this bookshelf is already too much for me to read. 80% of this bookshelf I haven't read, so I'm not really keeping tab of new releases. I'm sorry for that. I heard a lot of new releases and their positive reviews. One example is The Lost Apothecary, and I just like to read it maybe because of the cover and the word apothecary because you know, fantasy girls and fantasy readers and gamers life, apothecary is like one of the words that you usually meet in games and in fantasy world. That's why it got my attention, but I'm not really going to invest my money on new reading, considering that I have a lot of unread books in my shelf already. So this question is not applicable for me. Number 5 is biggest disappointment so far. This is so juicy. Maybe I just have high expectation. It's not really that the book is so bad. It's just a result of my high expectation from good reviews. I have 2 books here. I rated them 3 stars. 3 stars for me is the book is good, but it's not for me. So it may be enjoyable for other people, and I can see why other people would love it, but it's not for me. In my standard, it's a disappointment, and it can be better. Okay, so first is Wakasang Wasak by Sinch Malvar. I enjoyed this, but it's not for me. It's not because it's erotic. It's not even erotica. It's trying to be horror, but it talks about a lot of social issues, and it does not, mix well with me. And I have a lot of things that I like about it, but there are also stuff that does not make sense to me. So what is this all about? This is a compilation of 3 short stories that are fantasy, horror, and paranormal. So we have here Ang Kama ni Stella or Stella's Bed, and we have The Mutya of San Isidro, Where Angels Fear to Dance. This is a short read, but it took me some time to finish it because I really have trouble in the writing style. Also, in the writing style, maybe that's my issue when the writing style or world building is not really that good, or character development is not really developed. So, the other one is I Love You Since 1892. That book for me is a disappointment because it is like a missed opportunity. It has amazing idea. It has a great concept of Filipino historical romance, but I think it's a missed opportunity because one, the writing style could be better, it could be improved given the right editor maybe. They say that the Wattpad version of it is a lot better than the published book, which I don't know how did that happen. Maybe that's because of the editor or something. So it's not the writer, maybe. It's a missed opportunity. The first book. The second book that I read is a lot better than the first book. It's like 70% better than the first book, and that's a good job. I already gifted the book set, the box set, to my cousin who enjoyed it so much. Maybe I'm not just the right audience or reader for that book because, I'm so nitpicky when it comes to historical romance, especially set in the Philippines. I just think it's a missed opportunity, doing the research and inserting a lot of relevant historical accounts. So that's the reason why it's a disappointment. It's not that it's a bad book, it's just a missed opportunity. Number 6 is the biggest surprise. Actually, I was surprised every time that I read a new book or a new author this year. Again, that's because I already have read more than half of the amount that I read for the year. So this actually is a tough decision to make because I really had a blast reading new authors and new books. But then we go back to my favorite author because I also read with this in the first half of the year this awesome short book. This is Mikey Resho and the Secret of the Demon Dungeon by 3 authors. We have Budget Tan, Bo Guerrero, and JB Tapia. Yeah, Sergeant Tapia. This is a surprise because I didn't know about this book. This is set in the Philippines. Features Mikey Resho and his clan of knights who are serving and fighting mythological creatures and so on. It's like a mixture of the England's knights and the rich Philippine mythology. So in here we follow Mikey Resho and how he got this agimat and now he is set for big adventures as a knight. Still looking for the sequel for this book because I cannot find the sequel. I think it's called Clasificado. So if you know where to find the book 2 of this book, please tell me in the comment section. Number 7 is favorite new author. Again, I'm not really familiar with new releases, but I will just include here the 2 authors that are new to me because I just recently read their works, and those are Rin Chapeco and Erin Entrada Kelly. Rin Chapeco, I'm really surprised by her books. Her works are the works that I imagined myself writing when I was young. These are the YA fantasy that I wanted the world to have, and if I could only enchant each and every one of you to read Rin Chapeco's fantasy world, her world building, her characters, her relationship dynamics, they're just so good. Rin Chapeco's work is like breath of fresh air, and these are the works that I would like every Filipino student would read, especially those who love fantasy. Also, I have read Erin Entrada Kelly's Lalani of the Distant Sea, and I really enjoyed that middle grade book. It's about Lalani and her adventures going to next island that is a mythical island for them, and we follow this heartwarming adventure. I would really want to root for Lalani, and I came to love the world. It's just so perfect. So those are the two new authors for me that I recommend to everybody. Number 8 is new fictional crush. I was about to say Basilio. I was about to say Basilio from the Treseverse, because again, I reread Trese and my crush on Basilio is ignited again. I also have Father Matias because I read Trese Bloodlines as well in this year. So those are my automatic answer, but for the sake of diversity, for the sake of not talking about Trese for an entire video that is not Trese video, I would include also Arjun of the Never Tilting World. The Never Tilting World by Rin Chapeco follows this of two princesses, one from the land of like desert land and the other one is from the frozen land, because the world stopped rotating in its axis, and so the world is divided into the hot and cold weather. And yes, and we have from the desert, we have Arjun. He's an amputee orphan who got to the vessel of the other princess. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name. Yeah. But I remember Arjun. Yeah. Arjun is a dependable, reliable character. He's fierce, he protects, and he slowly fell in love with our main character from the desert. That's why I really have a crush on him. And yes, that's all we have. Arjun, Basilio, and Father Matias. Noah's favorite character is our number 9 question, and automatically my answer is Lalani from Lalani of the Distant Sea by Erin Entrada Kelly. Lalani is like this fierce girl. She reminds me of my younger self when I was in elementary. She's curious about a lot of stuff and she would like to try a lot of new stuff, and she would like to help people, even goes out of her way just to help others. That is Lalani, and Lalani is a little girl that I rooted for and I cried with when I read her adventures in that book. Number 10, book that made you cry. I cried a lot. I cried even though I felt good while reading that book because I am moved by the situation of the plot and the characters. I cried when the characters are broken. I cried for a lot of reasons for many of the books that I have read. But the first book that came to my mind when I read this question is when I cried reading the foreword of this book. Yeah, foreword of this book by Jerry Alangelan. When I read this book, I did not know about Jerry Alangelan yet. I haven't heard about him yet. The first time that I saw his name is on the foreword of the first volume of the Treseverse, which is Murder on Malete Drive. By that time, it does not make sense because I haven't read Jerry Alangelan's work. As years pass and I have read his works and I have heard about him from many artists, about how kind of a person he is, about how respectful he is, and passionate about the graphic novel society in the Philippines, and all the artists saying and reading about his thoughts on Trese getting published in a book format like this really touched my heart and it moved me, and I wish that he has seen the Netflix adaptation. Oh my god, I'm going to cry again. I wish that he's still alive and has seen the success that his baby Trese is enjoying now. So this is my answer to the 10th question. Book that made you cry. It's not really the book. It's just the foreword of this book. Number 11 is the book that made you happy. And that book, I had a hard time deciding on this because happy is the feeling that I feel every time I finish a book. Even though it's a sad, broken book, I really feel happy whenever I finish a book. Relate? Relate? Let me know who can relate to that. Happy in a way that I laughed when I read it or during reading it. That is none other than Alab ng Puso sa Dibdib Mo'y Buhay, Kiko Machine 5th installment by Manix Abrera. This book features comics or graphic novels by Manix Abrera, and it features the campus life, school life of college students and also the faculty members, and it resonated with me so much, especially those that are set in the faculty and features teacher's point of view on a certain scenario in a school festival or a school event or just the everyday life in school. And yeah, it made me laugh. It may be text heavy. I still read each of the thought bubbles and everything just made me laugh. Laugh out loud. That's why I always say, whenever you have a bad mood or whenever you are stressed out, just read Manix Abrera's work and guaranteed stress-free reading experience. What book do you want to read by the end of the year? And I have two answers for this last question. And the first one automatically is The Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book to the Six of Crows trilogy, and I absolutely adore Six of Crows. But then I always put this on hold. I do not want to end the story. That's why I'm not reading it. It's still sealed. I always put it on hold because I do not want to say goodbye to my favorite cast of characters. I do not want to say goodbye to this world. I would like to stay with the Dregs with all my heart. And I would not want to say goodbye to Inej. And I heard a lot of heavy stuff about these books that I have to prepare my heart because I would cry out loud when I read this. So I don't want to read this. But I also want to read this because this is so great. I don't know. So I'm going to read this by the end of the year. So wish me luck. The second book that I would like to read by the end of the year is actually not sure if it will be published this year. But when it does, this is Tiger Burning Bride, the 13 volume. It features the 35th Trece case, and I already read some of the panels that he has published in his IG, and I'm really looking forward to reading the entire volume because it's just so heartbreaking, you know, to read those panels and not the entire book. What are you doing? This is torture! Please publish it soon. So those are the two books, The Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo and Trece Volume 8 by Kajo Valdissimo and Budget Pan. 12th question is the most beautiful book you bought or received so far. Well, congratulations to me. I was able to not buy books for the first half of the year, but then Big Bad Wolf came on the second half, so all of our self-discipline got swapped. But for the first half of the year, I was gifted by the son of my colleague 2 books as a sign of his gratitude for the help that I gave him in his studies and in the university. So he gifted me 2 books, and one of which is my answer to this question, which is Fly by Night. And this follows Mosca, My or Mie. It screams interesting to me. It screams bookworm to me. And now that I read the synopsis of this book, it follows Mosca, who is a girl that was taught to love books and read books by her father. But then when her father died, she was left to the care of his uncle and aunt that are cruel to her. This is a book of escape from the cruel uncle and aunt, and all about the power of words and power of books and how dangerous they are. I'm really excited to read this book. And that's the end of this book tag. Thank you so much for watching. Here are all the books that I have mentioned in this video. If you're interested with any of them, comment in the comment section and let's talk about them. These have given me a roller coaster ride for the first half of 2021. I hope you also have a great time reading, even though they are not really up to your standard or not really to your taste. they are still books and reading is still fun. So let's read for fun. Even though the reading experience was a roller coaster ride of emotion, what I learned is that for the next half of the year, I will be reading books that are interesting for me and not force myself to read the books that are not interesting for me. So I will not go into a slump again. And that's one of the secrets for reading more books. So I will be leaving you now. This has been Marty, and remember to read more, know more, and be more. Happy reading!